Hi, I'm Dorian, or Leviathan to my friends, and I'm an eldritch abomination lurking in the corners of your attic. And I'm also here to tell you not to go to art school. I've gone to art school, or rather a community college art program, twice. Both times I dropped out after one whole year. And both times I learned I could just be doing master studies and life drawing sessions from the comfort of my own home instead of paying thousands of dollars every year. More specialized art universities might offer a better education than the pits of despair that I walked into every day, but either way you cut it, they're at least incredibly expensive. Those universities cost upwards of $50,000 or more per year, and community colleges offering an associate's in general arts or studio arts cost between $15,000 to $25,000 a year or more. The colleges I went to cost both $16.5K and $27K a year. After securing the mythological government financial aid and scholarships, my tuition came down to around $5K to $10K a year. Within the US, both of your parents will be considered contributors to your tuition. If they make above $27K a year, you're the only child, and the cost of living is seen as quote-unquote low within the state, you most likely won't get government help. That's what happened to me. My parents made too much, and despite the fact they couldn't pay for my college, I wouldn't be able to receive that wonderful, wonderful government aid. So I entirely relied on a scholarship that could be easily taken away if I dipped below a 3.0 GPA, which it did by about 0.15 points, costing me half of my scholarship, which was about $800. I got that government aid, or FAFSA, the second time around due to the fact I was considered an emancipated student. I was 23 at the time. I was making nothing because of the pandemic, and I lived in a state that had higher tuition costs. Thankfully, I was living with my parents, but a lot of people don't get that luxury and are paying for a roof over their heads, their own food, and their own bills, which means they are at least a part-time or full-time employee. You could feasibly be a full-time student and a full-time employee, as a lot of scholarships need you to be a full-time student to give you that good old cash. But I know plenty of people in that position, and they are burned out and tired all the time. Sometimes that schooling you're getting just isn't worth all that mental anguish simply because of the quality of said education. Again, I've only gone to community college, so maybe this is more of a criticism of them, but I did find I could have just sat on my couch and figured out how color theory works instead of paying a Karen to very rudely explain it to me for $1,000. Anytime I asked a professor how they were executing techniques, or if they could explain things instead of just using broad terms, they would brush me off and tell me that I was supposed to figure it out through practice. While there's some merit to this, you do learn a lot just by attempting something. I needed to be told why and how they were getting their lines a certain way, or how they were painting, especially because they often graded us on that concept, and I wasn't understanding what they were getting at. Nobody at either school would explain what I needed, or wouldn't give me the time of day in the first place. Maybe this is a failing on the neurodivergent side of things. I learned differently than the typical college student, but they could have at least tried to help. Instead, I had to spend years after the fact finding other resources once I dropped out. A lot of what I've studied and applied to my work comes from internet sources. For things like gesture drawing and anatomy practice, I highly suggest finding stock photo artists like Adorka Stock or Jukepub Stock, or going to websites like Line of Action, then sitting down and doing an hour or so of life drawing. Pinterest and Tumblr are archives of really helpful tutorials on things like drawing hands, how to shade things properly, or even how to digitally render metal. This does involve a lot of guesswork, unfortunately, on your part. If you do need more structure, I suggest going onto YouTube and watching videos from people like Proco TV or Mark Brunet. They go into depth on art fundamentals and how you can keep up your passion for art without burning out. There's also drawbox.com, which is another webbed site full of free lessons on all the things you would be taught in those bigger institutions. Being self-taught can't exactly be a stand-in for a degree, but you absolutely can get that education you need without attending college. You can also be successful without a degree. There are some areas in art where you do need that cursed bit of paper, but a lot of art companies don't require a degree to work for them. Many of the entry-level art positions at indie game companies only want you to have experience within certain digital art programs like Maya, Blender, Toon Boom, and even just Photoshop. The same thing can be said for smaller animation companies as well. You don't have to work for a company either. You can absolutely make a career for yourself being a self-employed artist. Plenty of people have made a name for themselves by illustrating covers for books and comics, like Dear Lord Hunter and Groove, who have both created covers for Critical Role. It's important to note, though, that many of us freelance artists do wear multiple hats. We freelance for companies, take private commissions, have Etsy stores, and do the convention circuit. Don't count yourself out just because you don't have a degree. It is all well and good for me to tell you that you can do it, and all you have to do is try. You do have to be harder on yourself. We artists tend to think we're going to be good at something overnight. We never are. You will try, and ultimately you will fail. Never give up, though. Just because you might be bad at something first and you're not sure how you'll ever understand it, if you keep at it, you will get there. If you give yourself a strict schedule and make sure you critique yourself without destroying your ego like that middle school art teacher we all had, you'll come out the other end for the better. I know I'm harping on about art institutions as well, but there are benefits to going to art schools, especially universities. You do get access to professors who can critique your work in a constructive manner, and as long as you get the right ones, they'll be able to help you understand the concepts that might take you weeks to understand on your own. Colleges have access to tools that you might not get on your own as well, like for bookbinding and lino cut work. For people who want to get into art education or art therapy or even specialized areas within animation or the creation of video games, you might need that degree. Just be aware of how much those colleges tend to charge for those degrees. Personally, I didn't see merit in going back to school. But that being said, my husband does also have an art degree and found some worth in his university. Though it should be noted, he went to school in the UK where they better prepare their students for specialized careers, at least as opposed to the United States they do. Art school is a nuanced topic. But unless you need the degree to get a certain job, and until educational institutions stop making us pay thousands of dollars a year, I would see if you could give yourself an education first. It might take longer, but at least you won't have massive student loan debt, and who wants to owe Uncle Sam any more money than we already do? The guy hasn't paid his tab since 1776. Also, just to let you know, I do have a Patreon where you can get early access to my videos, suggest the topics for said videos, and even vote on them. And that is over on patreon.com/LevandJackCreate, where my husband and I post all of our art way before anyone sees it on social media. Special thank you to Jacques, Herald of the Dark Roast, Meg, Exarch of the Golden Egg, High Artisan Anonymous B, Great Alpha Wolf, Squilliam William, Nairuz, Seer of Rosy Mercy, Ghost, infernal collector of the damned, golden paladin court, Isabella, redeemer of bad himbos, keeper of the Lapin Warren, Robin, most royal of all the rats, ethereal consort of House Vicarian, fungal sovereign Tass, exalted curator Wick, the under-elf of Delphinia, paragon of starlight, an impossible amount of rat babies, divine herald Jordan, Estrella, sage of the outer realms, wretched sauce of House Worcestershire, champion pallypunk of the immortal valley, tailor of the macabre coney livery, eternal apostle Austin, the contingent of fables, the eminence of light, Bunny, exarch of the ornate tune, Harley the sanguineous, grand overlord Silas, being of exalted sunlight, delegate of clan Latiners, eternal consul Puja, high magi Katie, and the herald of wrens.